Hi guys and welcome back. I started this year with a HiBy RS8 review, which I still believe is the very best portable digital audio player that money could buy. But even before dropping that video, HiBy was already working on a co-flagship portable digital audio player, which is called R8 Mark II, which is basically dropping that legendary R2R ladder DAC architecture of RS8 and replaces it with a custom software-defined DAC section, which they are calling Darwin MPA or multi-phase PWM array. And if this feels like some rocket science to you in much simple terms, they basically custom designed the DAC section from scratch, and it's very reminiscent to what Chord Electronics is doing with their devices. Basically bypassing the limitations of off-the-shelf DAC chips and the complexity of R2R ladder DACs, the final result is basically a level of control and precision that has never been achieved in portable digital audio players, and let's talk about that. Design-wise, it seems that HiBy is once again trying to reinvent themselves with some very bold design choices. We have a CNC machined stainless steel body, which is not something new, but having an Alcantara material on its back will surely raise some eyebrows. It does look like a modern smartphone when looking directly, having much slimmer bezels all around, dropping one of the most iconic features of modern portable DAPs, the volume wheel. Another bold gamble of HiBy, but you know the saying, fortune favors the bold, and I hope that people will appreciate this understated look of the R6 Mark II. Although its stainless steel body is resilient to shocks, it still needs some basic maintenance, and if you'll be commuting with it, the bundled TPU case becomes a necessity, fitting it like a glove and saving it from scratches and accidental drops. The TPU case is much more than an ordinary silicone case, as I find it considerably thicker than usual. It's softer as well, protecting the sides of the unit with Alcantara material. It uses a bigger than usual 5.9-inch touchscreen, which is one of the biggest displays you'll see on portable digital audio players, covered in Corning Gorilla Glass with oleophobic coating, which should resist a few scratches and dents and maybe even a drop or two. From the looks of it, an IPS panel has been used. I find it vivid and impactful. The black levels are decent, but it won't have those inky blacks of OLED screens, nor that eye-blinding brightness of the latest smartphones. We no longer have a volume wheel, which was replaced by a volume up and volume down buttons on its left side, while on the right side we have the usual on-off, play, pause, next and previous buttons, including a micro SD card slot. You have all the inputs and outputs on its bottom, including dedicated line outs to be used as a dedicated DAC in a desktop HiFi or stereo setup, which I'll be doing in a minute. As far as I know, HiBy is the only DAP manufacturer that moved to Android 12. Many others are still using Android 10, like FiiO, like Shining, so this one is considerably more future-proof in a way. We still have that Snapdragon 665 that also powers their RS8 and also their most affordable DAP. We have 8 gigs of RAM memory and 256 gigs of ROM memory, which seems enough for third-party apps and for a couple of lossless albums. And if you need more storage, you can always slot in a micro SD card of up to 2 TB in size. It supports Google Play Store, so of course you can install any app you might desire, streaming apps, games, Office, so on and so forth, anything really. As I told you before, it uses a custom multi-phase PWM array DAC section, which is very similar to what Chord Electronics is doing. This is quite a complex DAC section, and HiBy is the very first DAP manufacturer that uses a software-defined DAC or FPGA DAC. They introduced the R2R ladder DAC in portable devices with their RS6 back in the day, and now they are doing basically the same thing with the R8 Mark II. The headphone amplifier section is equally impressive, using 2 op-amps at the preamp stage, boosting that voltage, and also 16 custom transistors for the headphone amplifier duties, which are biased in either class AB or class A operation. So this is actually very cool. I think that its DAC section and its headphone amplifier section are very, very different compared to what others are implementing in their portable DAPs, and this makes this one quite unique in my opinion. It provides 710 milliwatts of power via its balanced output, which is a little bit less compared to RS8, but in a real-life scenario you won't feel a difference versus the RS8. We have dual-band Wi-Fi, we have the nicest Bluetooth codecs, and so much more tech was crammed inside that I feel this video will be way too long, so please check HiBy's website for more information, or you can check my written review that I left below, which contains on average about 4 times the information of this video. Sound-wise, the moment I saw that 1024 tap FiiO filter, then an oversampling filter, then a multi-phase PWM array, then 16 current mode, programmable DAC chips, it was clear to me that this one won't sound like a regular portable digital audio player that uses off-the-shelf DAC chips, but more like combining Chord Electronics Dave with a Mola Tambaqui DAC, units that I've been using in both a HiBy and stereo setup. What struck me immediately after pressing play was how cursive everything sounded. The ease with which every note was pouring down my ear canal was actually mesmerizing, to say the least, somehow mimicking the sound of that RS8, but actually improving resolution, adding a little bit more micro detail, and also improving the pace, rhythm and timing compared to the RS8. The final sound coming forward out of this unit could be described only as incredibly liquid and believable sounding, which I believe are the strongest skills of the R8 Mark II, sounding like unamplified music without any trace of listening fatigue, of digitus, of treble glare, things that you'll never hear on the R8. In no time I was already engaging some treble intensive tracks that defined my teenage years. I went through a collection of nu metal and groove metal albums, trying to find a con that I could latch on and complain about. And sadly, except for a heavy-duty unit that might work as a self-defense weapon, I simply couldn't complain about anything else. Dynamics weren't just reaching RS8 crushing levels of impact, but even surpassed that, especially with fast-paced tunes. As you already know, I have an ongoing fetish with DA converters, and that's why about 1/4 of these videos are for DA converters. That's why you gave me DAC Man moniker a while ago. So clearly I have this thing with DACs and so on. I believe there is quite a difference between them. And after owning and testing hundreds of DACs, I do believe, and this is what I truly think, is that the DAC section of the R8 is nothing short of spectacular. So this one is truly outstanding and can be compared with dedicated DACs having the same price point, and that's what makes this unit actually truly unique sounding in a way. HiBy knows about this, and that's why they created this DAC, which is called CR08, which basically transforms your portable digital audio player into a desktop DAC, providing you RCA and XLR outputs. And in no time, I simply included this one in my stereo setup. I connected this one to Chord Electronics Ultima 3 preamplifier and Ultima 5 power amplifier, and I started playing music through those Rado TD 2.2 that you can see behind me. Right off the bat, the note bonding skills and the liquidity of the R8 moved to my living room, and for a few minutes I thought that a Mola Tambaqui DAC was playing music for me, and certainly not the R8. This is not an over-exaggeration from my part. I know my DACs very well, I trust my hearing abilities, and I do believe I have one of the most transparent sounding loudspeakers out there. And it indeed sounded like a high-end DAC. It was highly transparent, it was very technical sounding, it was quite musical sounding at the same time. And if you're already thinking about getting the R8, you should also get this CR08 dock and also a pair of XLR interconnects, and it can easily replace a high-end desktop DAC if needed. Now that we know that R8 uses an amazing DAC section and could easily replace a desktop DAC, let's go back to headphone listening. And as I have explained before, RS8 and R8 use a very similar headphone amplifier section made out of discrete components like custom transistors biased into either class AB or class A operation. And this is one of the best headphone amplifiers that you can design, because in terms of solid-state electronics, you cannot do better than fully discrete Class A amplifiers. Anyways, this one provides 710 milliwatts of power, slightly less compared to RS8, which provides 780 milliwatts of power per channel, but in reality, you'll be hardly pressed hearing a difference with planar headphones or with high-impedance dynamic headphones. Apart from a lonely beast that both RS8 and R8 couldn't tame, which was the HiBy Susvara, everything else worked really outstanding. The best pairings, easily that would be the Meze Elite, Meze Lyric 2, HiBy Audivina, HiBy Ananda Nano, Kineton Rogner, ZH Charybdis, and Sennheiser HD800S in no particular order. The highest volume that I could reach would be around 75 out of 100 steps available, and that would equal to around 90 to 92 dB sound pressure level, so clearly very loud. Even if I didn't have lots of headroom remaining on tap, I never felt that energy levels were going down, that the bass was not tight, controlled, punchy, alive. That never happened. On the contrary, this one was slamming and punching really hard, and it truly worked outstanding with planar and dynamic headphones. The hardest to drive headphones that worked with this one was Sennheiser HD800S. I was arriving at around 82 out of 100 for the same 90-92 dB SPL. And again, never I have felt that it was losing its grip, that the bass energies was going down. That never happened. So yes, you could drive your entire headphone collection if you don't use ultra low sensitivity headphones. If you followed my HiBy RS8 review, then you'll soon realize that it impresses really with its sound staging, with its imaging, with its depth capabilities, which were actually on another level compared to any other DAP that I have listened before. And if you want to know the strongest skill of the RS8, that is easily imaging, soundstage, and holography, which really sets it apart compared to anything else. But in terms of transit response and dynamics, it wasn't really as fast sounding like FiiO M17, which in my view was faster and slightly punchier sounding at the same time. RS8 was light years ahead versus mid-level DAPs, but dynamics weren't going in and out in split seconds as its price point might suggest. R8 Mark II, however, is a very different beast altogether. It's much faster sounding, it goes in and out in split seconds, and I feel that additional help for some third-party electronics like external headphone amplifier is no longer needed, because this one already sounds incredibly fast and very punchy, and in this regard, in terms of transients and dynamics, it's more impressive compared to the RS8, and the difference is actually not that small. R8 was designed for toy tappers and handbangers like me, infusing lots of energy in the bass, and strictly in terms of dynamics, fast transients and decay of the notes, R8 plays in a higher league versus RS8, and the only challenger I see is the FiiO M17. When switching from RS8 to R8, you can feel a difference in terms of dynamic range, transients, but also resolution, because there are additional things happening in the background, more micro nuances are going forward, and you simply can hear additional sounds which are not really there on the RS8. RS8 is actually very impressive in that regard, considering that we are dealing with an R-to-R ladder DAC, which by nature are not exactly as revealing and as transparent sounding, but this one is reaching higher levels of resolution, and you don't need some golden ears to hear the difference. It's actually quite obvious. And this is why I call this one as a very good DAC replacement, because it can easily actually outplay plenty of DACs in the 1,000 and 1,500 bucks region pretty easily. It's not really on the same level with my Chord Electronics Dave and the Rockner Wave Dream Signature, but them is actually not that far off, which makes it so much more interesting. It's a pity using the power behind it only with IEMs and with desktop headphones, so please don't be shy using this one with an integrated amplifier or maybe with a pre plus power combo as I did, driving your precious loudspeakers and always sounding clean and highly resolving. Moving on to Soundstage and imaging, I still believe that RS8 is sitting on top of the food chain, always sounding quite holographic, always trying to infuse a little bit more void space in between the notes, having an amazing note separation, even outperforming a few desktop components. This is something that I rarely say about portable devices, but this is actually very unusual in this regard. R8 Mark II is not really on the same level, but if I'm adding some open back headphones like Meze Elite, or better yet, RZ Charybdis, which are still some of the biggest sounding desktop headphones that I have tried, then the sound is actually quite spacious, and never felt that it was up front or close and personal sounding. Nothing feels forced or pushy, everything is floating all around, and you can pick up the sounds with the power of your imagination pretty easily with something like this and a pair of open back headphones. And if it feels that I'm describing a DAP that has an amazing soundstage, depth and note separation, then that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you. RS8 is still by a hair more impressive in this regard, and in my opinion, as I have told you before, this one plays a forever alone game in terms of imaging and soundstage. Still, I do believe when comparing some other DAPs, maybe some mid-level DAPs like R6 Pro by HiBy, maybe something like Shinling M7, M6 Ultra, FiiO M17S, this one is definitely more impressive in this regard. Moving on to frequency response, as a whole, I do believe that the bass is really what sets apart R8 Mark II versus any other doings by HiBy, yes, including the RS8. So quantity and quality-wise, I believe that this is probably the nicest bass that I have experienced in 5 years, and it's very, very similar to that of the FiiO M17 with a twist, because I believe this one provides a more natural rendition of the bass. It's not just powerful and punchy, but also quite layered, quite airy. You have additional layers of bass, which is something very unusual to say about a portable device. One might feel that the bass section is slightly elevated from the ground, from linearity, but no, that is not really the case. This is how high performance, high-end DACs are sounding. My reference DACs are doing the same. Chord Electronics Dave and Rockna Wave Dream Signature are doing the same. So this is what a proper bass should sound: powerful, punchy, carrying plenty of energy and emotions, and just putting some goosebumps on your hands. This is what happens with a portable device, and in terms of frequency response, this is the most impressive part of the R8. The whole mid-range region feels like I'm experiencing their RS8 all over again, so there is a little bit of lushness, but not a lot of it. A little bit of warmth and smoothness, but again, not a lot of it, so it's not going up in terms of energy like I'm feeling the bass. It plays basically on the same level with the rest of the frequency response, but it feels a little denser, a little heavier. The timbre, or how people are calling it, tonality, timbre, whatever, is definitely quite natural, quite real sounding. I believe I spent 2 white nights listening to this one with a pair of Meze Lyric 2. It always grabs my attention how the guitar plucking is sounding. It's very unusual in a way, because it's like no longer a simple guitar player is playing, but a virtuoso, something like that. The plucking is stronger, the vibration is longer, the trail of the note is longer, and this is what impresses on the R6. It's lush sounding, but not a lot. It's rich sounding, but again, not a lot, and also quite real sounding in this regard, so that is for sure. Treble was clean, extended, but at the same time it's not offensive, so forget about brightness, listening fatigue, glare. That will never happen on the R8. What's more interesting is that I believe it works outstanding really with bright tilted headphones, or maybe with neutral headphones like HiFiMans, like Brados, AKG, what else, Biodynamics. All of those should work really nice. I tried 2 pairs of HiFiMans, Ananda Nano and Audivina, and of course, being HiFiMans, they have a slightly stronger treble delivery, and although the information was very crisp and I was getting plenty of energy and information in that region, I was not getting that fake treble ringing, everything sounding quite real in this regard. So again, this is my kind of treble because I could listen even to some rock tunes, to metal tunes, to some raw recordings, not only to some audiophile grade recordings, even on some, you know, mid-class headphones, and that wouldn't bother me at all. So again, in terms of treble delivery, it sounds quite real in a way. It won't try to please you with sharp contour of the notes, with strong leading edges like FiiO M17 is doing. It leaves them peacefully without disturbing the tonal balance. This video is already getting longer than anticipated, so if you want to know how R8 Mark II is comparing with RS8 and also with the FiiO M17, then please check out my written review which I left below. Look for chapter 11 and everything will be revealed to you. Wrapping up, I think this fellow is one of the coolest looking portable digital audio players that I've tested so far, and sound-wise it will surely impress a hardcore audiophile but a music lover as well, because this one is technical but also quite musical sounding at the same time. And please don't get me started with those sound enhancements, because I don't believe there is any other DAP manufacturer that has as many sound enhancements. So not only we're getting a simple equalizer, but also a parametric equalizer, MSEB settings, hardware plugins, transistor bias, turbo mode, which by the way has nothing to do with gain, so clearly it has so much more compared to a traditional portable digital audio player. The best part, I don't see it as a downgrade from their RS8 and more like a different flavor, if you will, so trading that soundstage and imaging with a faster pace, with a high resolving sound, and depending on who you are, you might like the R8 or the RS8. All of this is being offered at a lower price point compared to RS8, and it might sound out of place, but it's not only worth its asking price, but it's a no-brainer considering its use cases and its final performance, and sure enough, Gold Award was fully justified. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to know more about this one, then please check out my written review which I left below, which contains on average about 4 times the information of this video. Crazy, right? Please consider subscribing if you like this video, and I'll see you very soon.